Today I'm talking about the lumber market and prices update for the end of June 2023. Hello again, everyone. Kata Kosman, publisher of Madison's Lumber Reporter. Here we are. It's the end of June almost for 2023, and I do have some updates for you with lumber prices and the lumber market. My last update, which was not that long ago, I was saying that prices hadn't really changed, and they have gone up now by a little bit. Still low compared to what we consider the new normal now, following that very long, slow 10 years of housing being underbuilt, and then the wildness of the 2.5 years following the COVID and the changes to society, where the prices went to such extreme highs, which we always knew that wasn't going to last. But where were they going to land was the big question everybody's been asking for the past 3 years. And so we had 1 year ago, in the middle of 2022, the interest rates started to rise and were climbing. Around now, they're starting to say they're going to maybe increase one more time, but level off, potentially even in Canada, thinking about starting to drop them again. And due to that, where the housing had slowed down quite a bit, which was the intention in the middle of last year, and then didn't really pick up this year in the spring, as spring took forever to come on, that very long, very cold, very harsh winter that we had all across the continent. And so just now, the last couple of weeks here at in the middle and toward the end of June, prices have started to rise. The supply demand, there is still a lot of sawmills producing at lower volume than maximum. So there is still a lot of wood available to come back online for production that is still not in the market. And the buyers and the sellers, the sawmills and the customers, are just looking to see where is that supply-demand balance going to land, so that the price comes to a good point that the market can bear, and only after that, if necessary, if demand continues and prices rise, will the sawmills bring more of this curtailed or slowed down manufacturing online. So let's look at a graph really quick. I'll show you that Western Spruce 2x4 that we use all the time, the benchmark. Lumber price is manufactured here in British Columbia, Alberta, Washington State, Oregon, and a little bit out of Idaho, and is used all across the continent for home building in Canada and in the US. So in the week ending June 23rd, 2023, the price of benchmark softwood lumber item Western Spruce-Pine-Fir KD 2x4 number 2 and better had risen and was at US $406 per thousand board feet. This is up by $16 or 4% from the previous week when it was $390. And is up by $49 or 14% from 1 month ago when it was $358. Compared to the same week last year when it was $535, this price is down by $129 or 24%. And compared to 2 years ago when it was still super high at $1,048, that week's price is down by $642 or 61%. So this is what I mean, as you can see by the red line of 2021. When that works out and the scale of the graph fixes, this volatility will be removed, and we'll have a better picture of what the price trends are for the past 1 year, and then be able to make a little bit of an assessment for the rest of this year and going forward. Okay, great. And so while it's up, on the graph, it doesn't really look like it's up that much, because we still have showing that incredible high from 2 years ago, as my graphs that I put on the website and on YouTube are a 2-year rolling history. But it is now 2 years ago that that incredibly high price started to drop. And because, as these things go, the high that it reached when it did correct back down, it corrected to lower than it had been prior to that rise. Okay, so during those past 3 years, as the price shot up and then fell back down, the next time it went up not as high, and the correction down was not as low. And through the end of last year and the beginning of this year, the line looks really flat. It actually was quite flat there between 350 and 390, just above 400 now, as I just showed you. And the important things that let us know about what's going to happen over the rest of the summer while we're still in construction season and while the lumber manufacturing usually is at least not as slow as it is in December, is the sawmill order files. Now, we've got a little bit of a different situation happening in the east and the west. We do have fires in the west. People will remember that back in April, Alberta burst into flame immediately as soon as the snow melted. Quite horrifying, actually. Never happened before. And then Nova Scotia. So the Alberta fires, they're not going to get put out until the weather starts to cool off into the end of August. But a lot of them are not necessarily where the timber supply to the sawmills is. They are forest fires, but a lot of them are in parks or in areas that are not within the timber supply basket. The fires in Quebec are still horrifying right now, as I don't need to tell you, it's in the mainstream news what happened. And people in New York State and parts of the Northeast United States that were complaining about Canada fires, we had the same thing here in BC when Oregon and Northern California were on fire. So there is no border for this. We are all the same when it comes to the weather and when it comes to these kind of incidents. Okay, so so Quebec is a primary lumber manufacturing province, which means timber harvesting and then 2x4s or dimension lumber or boards. Ontario is a secondary remanufacturing. So Ontario, they do have some timber supply and primary mills, but in general, Ontario takes the primary wood from Quebec and remanufactures it into something else. Wood trusses, I-joists, whatever. Lots of stuff. So the supply of lumber in Canada, Quebec is second to British Columbia and very important. So because those fires in Quebec are still happening now and really severe and nowhere near being extinguished, it is causing a threat to supply there. And so the eastern spruce prices rose by more almost immediately. But what happens is, because it's a North America market, when one region has an impact on supply, in a situation like this where the market is tight, where nobody was stocking on inventory for the last 3 years because, first of all, the prices were insanely high, and then people were wondering, what is going to happen with housing, and if the price drops, I don't want to stock up now. I'm going to be left holding expensive wood when the price is lower. So due to that, now the sawmill order files in Quebec are well into July, several weeks. Kind of depends on who you talk to, but a 3-week order file at this time of year, that's pretty strong. Quebec goes into a seasonal closure for all manufacturing and for all construction for 2 weeks in August, and everybody knows that. So right now there's this play where those who have building projects on or coming on, but have not been stocking up on wood because they don't know if the price is going to go down, trying to figure out how much wood they need between now and August, because they don't want to get stuck not being able to work when Quebec is not selling. And they also don't want to stock up because, like I always say, Labor Day is the beginning of the end, and prices generally, like historically, will start dropping. I don't know about this year because my next video is going to be housing starts, which are up a lot, and also new home sales, which are up a lot. And these are all the main consumers of North America lumber. And then in the West, the order files are a couple of weeks for that Western spruce, and for the Western species like your Douglas fir, hemlock, balsam, all of these that come out of the west side of the continent. And that's also quite good. I mean, long story short, what that means is prices are not going to go down immediately. Because if the order file is 3 weeks, the price at a minimum is going to stay where it is right now. And in 3 weeks, the producers will assess where the situation is, if it's still going good demand, or if things are starting to slow down and they don't want the price to drop, so they'll take more manufacturing offline. People will take their vacations. The normal seasonal production starts to come off a little bit, as what I say usually is the actual demand for wood seasonally is sort of before spring, like February, March, April. So being in June, toward the end of June, not normally a time of year that a lot of ordering would be going on, but now we've got storms. There's been some tornado, hurricane, whatever you call it, in the Midwest of the US. And if there is a significant amount of destruction, especially like with re-roofing, this causes an increase in demand at a time of year when normally maybe that wouldn't necessarily happen, like in a normal situation where housing was chugging along and there wasn't particularly a lot of fires and the storm season was not that bad or hadn't really come on for the year yet. So let's look at some more data, some more graphs in a table, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about these exact particular things. And here we have those top 6 items traded and used at the highest volume across North America. That Western spruce graph that I was showing you is the red line, and the other 3, Eastern spruce, southern pine, and Douglas fir, looking pretty good, on trend. Obviously, there's some variation in the timing of when those prices went up and down. And keep in mind that Douglas fir, that green teal line, is produced only on the west coast. And then your panel, which is Canadian softwood plywood, is the light blue sort of gray line that is going off on its own since the end of last year, which is not that unusual. Plywood and OSB prices do have their own price trend. They don't necessarily always move up and down with dimension lumber, and one of the reasons for that is because it's used for a lot of other things besides housing. And then that purple line is your studs. Can't build a house without studs. We've chosen the, again, benchmark Western Spruce KD 2x4 PET studs, precision end trimmed. And that also looks like it's rising now into the second half of this year. These are the same items that you were just looking at, presented as a table showing you the actual change over week and month over month. Western spruce being the top line and plywood being the bottom line. So where in most of this year, those prices were down or flat week over week and certainly month over month, year over year, that is now starting to pop up. And that's very interesting because we are not really having the usual seasonal trend that I keep talking about, where by this time of year, most builders will have already ordered the wood or indeed received the wood that they had ordered back in February, March, April, and don't need to get any more. So since inventory has been so tight and nobody's stocking up on supply because they just don't know what's going to happen with the price, there is still ordering happening now. I would normally expect these prices to stay flat. Like I say, it's not a time to stock up on inventory, but it hasn't been normal for 3 years, so we don't know until it happens. Okay, so there you go for now. When I do the price compared to 1 year ago or compared to 2 years ago, I'm glad to see that what we had experienced with that incredible highs and then the big correction down, as I said, is starting to work itself out. And so it's getting a little bit easier to compare what we know happened in the macroeconomic situation and with housing and with lumber 1 year ago and 2 years ago compared to now, and maybe start now forming a little bit of an idea of what we can expect, for next year and going forward from there. This new situation that we're in changed completely since, the last normal year of 2019. And so if you like what you see here, click like so this video will get recommended to other viewers. Click subscribe here on YouTube so that when I make another update, you'll be notified. And if you really need the information more than just this very small snapshot that I put on the YouTube and on my website, go to the link in the caption to go to my website, subscribe, ask for a sample, and we will send you the full 500 individual softwood lumber and panel commodities that we track every week since 1952, and the price. What is the price for this week? And we will also send you the commentary that this all goes into my dashboard for the customers that have a login, explaining why those prices have, what's happening with the market and why those prices have changed. And it's all what I talk about here: inventory, log supply, order files, transportation issues, weather, labor dispute, all of that kind of stuff. All goes in every week to explain the changes to the price that you can see in the sample. And then if that is something that you need to see every week, come on to have a log into my dashboard, and you won't need to wait until, a lag of time when I can make a YouTube and put it on the website.